Today, we're diving into the mind of one of history's greatest strategists, Miyamoto Musashi. We're going to uncover the systematic method behind the legend, a code for greatness built not on some inborn talent, but on a totally radical and uncompromising mindset. Let's get into it. This one idea, it's the key to absolutely everything. Musashi's genius wasn't just about his skill with the sword, which was, legendary. It was that he got that victory is a psychological game first and a physical one second. He didn't just want to win duels. He wanted to architect the win itself. He wanted to turn any object, any environment, even his opponent's own mind into a weapon. This is the story of how he built that mind. So here's how we're going to break down his method. First, we'll see his philosophy in action during his most famous duel. Then we'll rewind to his pretty brutal childhood to see where his thinking came from. We'll dive into his core philosophy, dissect the daily systems he used to get so good, and finally translate his legacy into a practical code for greatness that you can actually use today. We're starting where the legend was really cemented, the island of Funijima, way back in 1612. Musashi is about to face his greatest rival, Sasaki Kojiro, a master swordsman famous for his speed and his extra-long sword. The entire martial arts world is watching this. Everyone's expecting this epic battle, a masterclass in swordsmanship. But Musashi has other plans. Now, this wasn't him just running late, it was pure strategy. Just imagine Kojiro, this polished, celebrated master, standing on that beach, his pride and frustration just boiling over with every minute that ticks by under the hot sun. And then, finally, Musashi shows up, looking all unkempt, and he's not holding a perfect, gleaming katana. Nope, he's got this crude, oversized wooden sword he literally carved from an oar on the boat ride over. He wasn't just being disrespectful, this was psychological warfare. He was taking Kojiro's composure apart piece by piece before a single sword was swung. And this is the crucial point. Musashi did not want a fair fight. He was hunting for what he called the opening. And that's not a physical gap in defense, it's a psychological one, a crack in his opponent's focus. By showing up late with a ridiculous weapon, he created that opening. He made Kojiro furious, pushing him from a state of disciplined focus into just pure raw emotion. In Musashi's mind, the fight was already over. This whole duel is a perfect snapshot of his core ideas. It was basically a clinical experiment testing two key concepts. First, fluidity, the ability to adapt to absolutely anything. That carved door, it was longer than Kojiro's famous sword. A direct, totally unexpected counter. And second, internal order, keeping that unshakable calm while his opponent was losing it. Musashi proved that real power isn't the weapon you hold, it's the disciplined mind that wields it. And that mind, well, it was forged in a really tough childhood. So before he was this legendary sword saint, Miyamoto Musashi was a total outcast. He grew up in a war-torn part of Japan in the late 16th century, a world of constant violence. And he wasn't seen as some prodigy. No, he was seen as a wild animal, just this untamable force. Even his own father, a respected martial artist, thought his son's unconventional style was a failure. He was an insider by blood, but a complete outsider by spirit. This timeline just shows a life defined by bucking the system. As a kid, he was more comfortable out in the wild mountains than in any formal training hall. And get this, at just 13 years old, he wins his first duel against a fully trained warrior. Not with grace, but with raw, brutal effectiveness. That moment basically cemented his belief in his own way of doing things. It led him to the life of a Ronin, a masterless samurai where he felt this deep vagabond hunger. But this period became his forge, his warrior's pilgrimage, where he had to unlearn the need for status or recognition, realizing they were just traps. So you can see this fundamental clash of two different mindsets. On one side, you have the established samurai code. It's all about etiquette, status, rigid, rehearsed movements. Musashi, he rejected all of it. Instead of their ceremony, he chose functional purity, an obsession with what actually works. Who cares how it looks? He swapped their need for status with internal order, and he traded their rigid forms for total fluidity, always hunting for the opening instead of just following the textbook. His years as a Ronin, with no recognition, no status, that could have destroyed him. But instead, he weaponized that isolation. See, being free from the need to perform for a master or a school meant he could just observe the world without any bias. He wasn't consumed by all the chaos around him. He used it to build this internal fortress of pure pragmatic logic. He realized that to build a new way of seeing the world, he had to be willing to stand completely alone. And that brutal forge gave birth to a revolutionary philosophy. Okay, so out of all this friction, this life as an outcast, comes his core philosophy. This is the moment he goes from just being a survivor to a master strategist, by basically defining a whole new way to think about skill, power, and even truth itself. He called it the philosophy of the void. Now, I know that sounds super mystical, but it's actually deeply practical. Musashi believed that every time you rehearse a movement just to make it look pretty or to follow some old tradition, you drain its power, you make it predictable. The void is a state of mind that's just clear, present, and totally focused on what's happening right now, free from the baggage of how things should be done. It's always about function over form. And this quote is really the heart of it all. The way, the path to mastery, it wasn't found in books or talking about theories or performing for an audience. It was forged in the relentless, gritty, and honest work of training. For Musashi, real skill isn't an act you put on. It's a state you achieve through constant, unglamorous practice. This whole philosophy led him to a strategy of radical pragmatism. And this isn't about being reckless. It's actually the opposite. It's the disciplined patience to stay completely present, just absorbing information without judgment, until the perfect moment to act becomes so obvious you can't miss it. It's about letting the world's chaos reveal an opportunity that lines up perfectly with your own internal focus. And this is the huge paradigm shift. For him, a duel wasn't a contest of ego, it was a laboratory. Every opponent, every weapon, every location was just a new variable in an ongoing experiment to find the truth, the most effective, efficient, direct path to victory. This completely removes emotion and fear from the equation. It turns a life-or-death struggle into a cold data-gathering exercise. But this mindset didn't just stay as a theory. He turned it into a set of daily habits. So, how do you turn a philosophy like that into a reflex? Well, Musashi was a systems thinker. He developed these concrete daily protocols to literally hardwire these ideas into his mind and body, transforming these abstract beliefs into battlefield instincts. His most famous system was the Two Skies protocol, his two-sword fighting style. And this wasn't just about having an extra weapon. It was a tool for rewiring his brain. Training with both hands forces an ambidextrous reaction, and that breaks the mind's dependency on its dominant default side. It develops a mind that can process multiple threats and opportunities at the same time. The goal was total clarity, where pure utility, what works right now, is the only thing that matters. Along with his physical training, he practiced a mental routine, the void audit. Think of this like a constant mental system check. He would just pause and assess his mental state, making sure his mind was sovereign, meaning it wasn't being influenced by external chaos or his own internal doubts and fears. It was a habit for maintaining that internal fortress he'd built in his youth, making sure his actions always came from a place of clarity, not just pure reaction. His whole system was about foundational balance. He mastered environmental leveraging, using things like the sun at Fanajima or the layout of a room to get an edge. His ambidextrous training went way beyond swords. It was about building whole brain thinking. And crucially, he practiced art. Painting and poetry weren't just hobbies, they were tools to free his brain from the rigid logic of combat, which helped him foster creative strategy and pattern recognition. He wasn't just building a fighter, he was building a complete master. So what's the ultimate payoff for this lifelong dedication to his method? Well, near the end of his life, undefeated in over 60 duels, Musashi retreats to a cave, and there he writes down his philosophy in the Book of Five Rings. And it wasn't just a manual on swordsmanship, it was a masterclass in strategy that would resonate for centuries, influencing everyone from military leaders to modern-day CEOs. This is his ultimate transformation. The wild animal, the vagabond child, became the architect of a new way to think about conflict and competition. He argued that true victory doesn't come from brute force or trickery, but from superior strategy, discipline, and a deep understanding of reality. He basically gave competition a new moral conscience. Win because your mind is sharper, your focus is clearer, and your connection to the truth is stronger. And this, for me, is his most powerful legacy. Musashi completely destroyed the myth that skill is some fixed, innate talent you're either born with or you're not. He proved, through a lifetime of evidence, that what really matters is the unvarnished mind. A mind that is clear, adaptable, pragmatic, and relentlessly focused on what is real. And that's a mind anyone can build. And that's where his story becomes a guide for us. All right, let's bring this all home. Musashi's journey isn't just a cool history lesson. It's a timeless roadmap for anyone trying to navigate a complex world, whether you're an artist, an entrepreneur, a leader, or a student.
Think about it. How often do we feel stifled by the way things are always done? By industry best practices, by corporate etiquette, by academic dogma, by all these rules that value the appearance of competence, the form, over actual results, the function. Musashi's entire life is a rebellion against this. It teaches us that our greatest power lies in our ability to stop rehearsing and start executing based on what truly works.
So this brings us to the final question for you. What is your wooden oar? Where in your life are you busy polishing the perfect sword when a simpler, more direct tool is all you really need to win? Where are you choosing form over function? Musashi's lesson is that when you raise your level of discipline and focus on what's real, you stop being a victim of the established rules and you become the master of your own strategy. You start finding your own openings, because ultimately the truth isn't in your title or the tools you have. The truth is in the training, and your strategy is the code for your greatness.